What is up, guys? So we've got a Magical Musketeer deck profile. Guys, this deck is so good. I mean, it's insane just the amount of power this deck has from these tiny little normal summon Magical Musketeers, but it does a lot and it has such strong plays. This is definitely a good one to pick up in this format. I think it can do quite a lot, especially against the current meta. It's just a very kind of resource intensive deck. And it just does a lot. It's good at trading with the opponent, disrupting the opponent, just in general being a nuisance and making it hard for them to get their play started. But before I get into this, guys, leave a like if you're enjoying my content. If you want to see more videos, comment, tell me what you want me to profile. I'll be sure to do it for you guys. But yeah, and subscribe to the channel for more content. So let's get into this profile. So we have the Magical Musketeers. I'll go over the ones we play. There are a lot of different Magical Musketeers, but these are the ones that I tend to play. These ratios go. So we have 3 Casper. Casper is your generic searcher, so obviously you're going to want 3 of him. 2 Doc, he's going to recycle a card, which is nice. 3 Kid Brave, again, he's not a searcher, but he's going to discard to draw 2, which is always going to be very good. And you don't mind having your muskets in the grave. They're very easy to summon. 3 Starfire, she's kind of like a searcher, only she specials a monster basically. She special summons any musket from your deck, which again is going to be useful. You're usually going to use her to go into Caspar or Doc, but yeah, she's really nice as well. Calamity, she special summons a musket from the graveyard, which is nice. And Wild allows you to shuffle 3 musket cards in your graveyard and draw a card, so he's nice as well. You only play these sort of one. They're not super important, but they are kind of nice flex spots to have. Yeah, so that's your musket monster lineup. Then we move on to the spells. So muskets have some of the most insane spells in the game, and what makes them even more insane is if you control a musket monster, obviously you can just Braveheart. Yeah, you can just activate them from the hand, which is great. I mean, activating a counter trap from the hand is going to be something that your opponent is not going to be able to deal with very well. But yeah, so we start off with Cross Domination. Allows you to negate a card basically. This is just imperm basically only. What makes the 2 things in my opinion that make it so much better, and the reason why this card is amazing, is the first thing is it allows you to change a monster's attack and defense to 0 as well. Now this is particularly good with this deck because you don't have a lot of attack power. Most of the time you're not going to be OTKing your opponent, so it's so nice to be able to reduce the opponent's attack to 0 and stop them from doing much. And what makes it even better is because of the way this is worded, it means that it even affects normal monsters. So if they have a normal monster on the field, for example, normally you wouldn't be able to negate it because it doesn't have any effects. However, the purpose of this card's effects, as you can read, the purpose of this card is to change its attack and defense to 0, not to negate it. And so what that means is if they have a normal monster on the field like a Nibiru, which is really good, you can still use Cross Domination on it because you are not trying to negate its effects. What you're trying to do is change its attack and defense to 0. It just happens to have its effects negated as well. This sounds weird, but yeah, this is just how the ruling goes. And that's what I think makes this so good for the deck, because it means that even when you make a big ass Nibiru token, that's something that I do in a lot of decks. You make this big ass Nibiru token, then it's like, how do I out the token? Well, this deck can very easily out the token because it can pop it, or it can just change its attack to 0 and then beat over it, which is wonderful. Then we are going to have 3 Desperado. This pops a card in the field, just a very nice card. Again, generic card to sort of generic removal that you have in the deck, which is lovely. Dancing Needle, this card is amazing, and this is a big part of what makes this deck so disruptive. You can banish up to 3 cards in the graveyard. So it could be either graveyard as well, which is lovely. So again, this is a really good card because you can disrupt, especially decks like Salad, Orcust, Adamantibator. You can just completely screw up their combos by removing their Block Dragon, removing their Spinnies or their Jaguars or their Nightmares, getting rid of all of that nonsense in the graveyards, and then they just can't combo off because their graveyard's gone. I mean, this card is really good, and then when you can recycle this and keep using it, I mean, you can turn off the game from there completely. Then we have 1 Bloody Crown. Now this card is actually amazing for the deck. One of the big weaknesses of Magical Musketeers is that you're very reliant on that first normal summon to get into the game. If you don't get it, a lot of the time you are screwed. So this is a really good card, and this will often be one of my early search just so I can get on the field. What this card lets you do is special summon a Magical Musketeer from your hand. It also stops your opponent summoning a monster in a monster zone, which can be useful, but in general it's not that relevant. But the main thing is just the ability to special summon a Magical Musketeer from your hand is really nice in this deck, because it just means that your opponent can't shut you out of the game just by virtue of having this card, just by virtue of having a card like a pop or something like Yugioh, for example. What's even nicer is this card, you do not have to control a magical musketeer to activate it. Most of the magical musket spells and traps, you have to control a magical musket monster to activate them. With this, you don't again, so it's really nice because if you have this on your turn, you can set it, then you can activate it in the opponent's turn and then bring out the musketeer, which is really nice. So this is a great card to have in the deck. I only play it one, obviously, because you don't usually need more than one. It's quite easy to search, but it's very important. I would not remove it from the deck. Then we are going to play 3 Last Stand, a counter trap, spell or trap, negation, counter trap that activates from the hand. Guys, that's insane. There's not much better than that. So anyway, moving on, then we just have kind of generic go second decks. Again, I play this deck going blind second. It's not the best format at the moment for going second, but this deck is one of the few, in my opinion, that can handle doing it. So it's really just a plethora of kind of board breakers and hand traps and stuff like that. So obviously I'm going to play Nibiru, great in this format. Phantasme really works well for magical musketeers just because it gives them that extra bit of draw power. It's a big body to put on the field that you can beat them with. I mean, it's really good. Ash Blossom, it hits basically everything, and we're going to play 3 evenly matched because you really like equalizing the board state. Again, musketeers, they don't make the biggest boards. They're all about grinding your opponent out, resourcing your opponent. So having a card like evenly matched is going to be amazing because the idea is that you're going to kind of clear half 5 or 6 cards off their board, and now you get to start doing your one by one advantage plays, and you can really just grind them out of the game and make it hard for them to do anything. Then we're obviously going to have 3 desires. You don't really care about any of your muskets getting disadvantaged. If you lose these 2, it's a bit sad, but it doesn't matter that much, so that's why we do play this at 3. I don't really like extravagance variants of this build just because your win condition is max, and if you lose, for example, 3 Caspers and 3 Starfires, that's bad, but you could still probably play the game and win. If you lose 3 Max, I don't see you winning the game. That's just not how good. Musketeers just aren't good at that. Max is your real equalizer on win condition. That's why, in my opinion, Desire is strictly better than Extravagance in this deck because you're simply more focused on getting out that Max and resolving his insane effect, which I'm going to go into now. So, Max, we all know him. We all love him. I mean, this is probably one of the single best Link monsters ever released, in my opinion. Firstly, it's a Link 1 monster. We know Link 1 monsters are the best. We like Link 1 monsters. They're the best kind of cards you can have. Free advantage for nothing. Yes, I'll take that. Then, when he's Link summoned, he can do one of 2 things. He can either add magical musket spell traps with different names from your deck to your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls, or add special summon monsters with different names from your deck up to the number of spell traps your opponent controls. Guys, this effect is crazy. That means if they have 5 set back row, you can special summon this card and then special summon 5 musketeers from your deck. What? Guys, this card is crazy. If they have 5 monsters, again, similar thing, 5 musketeer spell or traps from your deck to your hand. Max is insane. I don't know why Konami released this card. It's funny because when I used to play against the deck at first, I used to really hate it. It pissed me off so much. I was like, oh, this card's so busted. I don't get what it does and blah, blah, blah. But after playing it myself, I'm like, Konami, I'm so glad you released a busted deck like this, a busted card like this for the deck, because I don't know what the deck would have done without it. I mean, this card is amazing. He is your win condition. So many times I see Musketeer players playing, and then they're going to summon him out easily when the opponent's only got 1 card set or something like that. They're going to get rid of one of these for him. What you need to realize is that your main deck monsters, this is where your kind of grind game and ability to really play the game comes from. He is a win condition. You don't bring out Max just willy-nilly because he's just going to get negated or he's going to resolve very weakly, and you only have 3 of them. You can recycle him with wild, but that's not always going to come up. So you don't just want to bring him out willy-nilly. Wait until your opponent has a bunch of monsters and then you're going to want to use him. And Max is exactly why I play these 6 cards in my extra deck, just because of Max. So I'm going to actually quickly pivot to the extra deck just to explain that. You play 3 Dark Rune or no more so that you can resolve Max. You play 3 Anti-Magic Arrows so that you can resolve Max. That's why you play them, guys. You should not be summoning Max unless you think you're going to resolve his effect. He's always the last thing you do, because when you resolve his effect, he's like a reverse evenly match. Think of him like a reverse evenly match. Evenly match, you're going to get rid of 3 or 4 cards from your opponent. This is going to give you 3 or 4 cards a lot of the time. So that's why you're using him. So yeah, so I had to do a little bit of a mini rant about him because he is a really strong card and he is your win condition. Don't just waste him because you won't get him off and then you'll lose and you'll be confused why you lost. But anyway, yeah, moving on. So in the extra deck, we've got one hit per Shinigami. He is generally going to be one of the cards you're going to go into a lot. It's really nice to have hit per Shinigami just because what he does for you is he essentially allows you to make your magical musketeers a lot bigger. So max, normally I'll link him into hit per Shinigami, and then I might make another one again. So just so that my musketeers can actually contend with monsters, because they've all got very low attack apart from Wild. Wild is the best at 1700. They do have a level 7 or a level 8, but you don't play him. He's not that good. So it is really nice to have hit per Shinigami just to kind of give you that little bit of a boost. Cerberus is good as well. One of the things that's very nice is the arrows of max mean that often you're going to be able to use a Cerberus or Phoenix, discard a card, and then draw a card, which is really, really good with that. So that's why I play both Cerberus and Phoenix, as they just go really well. The Earth Charmer Immovable is really good. The reason why I play him was before I used to play Mind Control, but he was really good against Adamant Splitters. If you're playing Mind Control, he's not a bad card to have in your deck, similar to Heater. Similar, if you're playing against those fire decks, you can just resolve one of these two, in addition to the fact that Cerberus and Phoenix both can be used to make these as well, though you're not usually going to want to do that. But yeah, that's why we play those two cards. They are quite good. The Charmers aren't bad cards at all. Then we have one Unicorn. Unicorn, a great card, obviously. Draco Masters of the Tenyi. So the main reason why you play this card is it's a nice wall. One of the big weaknesses of Max, obviously, is he doesn't have a kind of continuous effects. He generates advantage and then he doesn't do anything. So you always want to kind of link him up and get rid of him. Don't just leave him on the board, because once he's used the effect, he's actually useless. He just becomes basically a vanilla. So this is one of the good kind of it's not vanilla, but this is a good link 3 to go into, because it's just hard to get rid of for your opponent. They have to use a card effect to destroy it. Black Luster Soldier, obviously you're going to be linking your Phantasmes and your Nibiru's into this. This card is very good and can win games by itself against a deck like Altergeist. They can't out this. Altergeist can't out Black Luster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos that easily. They struggle to out this card. That's how good it is. I mean, it's going to win games for you by itself. Then we have Access Code and Boral Sword. Boral Sword isn't amazing. You're not usually going to have enough materials to go into Boral Sword, or you're just not usually going to be in the ideal game state to go into it. Access Code, I'd say, is better for this deck, but they are both good. If you need a budget version, then you can do Access Code. You can do a Boral Sword instead of an Access Code instead. They are both very good cards to go into. But yeah, so that is the main deck. Then we've got the extra. So like I said, we have the 3 Dark Reader No More, 3 Anti-Magic Carriers. This is really for stunning your opponent and then at resolving your max effects, similar with Mystic Mine. Everything in my side deck is really just geared towards figuring out. So for game 1, I'm going to figure out what my opponent's doing. Then I'm going to side in just so I can stun my opponent and resolve max, because if I resolve max, I will win. Simple as. 3 Dimension Shifter. Dimension Shifter is quite good for this deck because you don't need your graveyard that much. You do recycle resources and you do use your graveyard occasionally, but you can get away with not using your graveyard, so I don't mind having Dimension Shifter. If you're a kind of person who has super amounts of money and you have 3 copies of Souls, Souls is not a bad card in this archetype as well. So you can play 3 Souls, 3 Shifter, and now your opponent, you've got insane draw power and you can screw your opponent out of the game. And then the most spicy tech. I really like this card. So I played this deck in regionals a while ago. I managed to top in that regionals, and this is why I like this card. It was all because of this card. It's amazing. So what this card does is, if there are 8 or more link monsters with different names in the field and the graveyards, you can special summon this card, but that's the only special summon you can do that turn. You can't special summon another monster. When it's special summoned, shuffle all other monsters that are banished on the field and in the graveyards into the deck. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. Also, this card's special summon can't be negated. So guys, Avida Rebuilder of Worlds is an insane card, especially this format. The reason why I like this card, and you would generally just play it all 3. You could play 1, but I would just play all 3 instead, especially because you're playing Desires. The reason why this card is so strong is the 2 things at the bottom. Firstly, you can't respond to this card's effect and you can't negate this card's summon. And so what this card will do is it will essentially cut the game short and you'll just win. That's what makes it so good. This deck is very good at stalling out games, and you get into the kind of 6, 7, 8 turn games where it's like your opponent just can't get over your immense amount of disruption and they keep going through combos and you keep negating and stuff. And so it's very likely that you'll have a game where you'll have this card's activation conditions met, and then from there it's just a case of special summoning it, and it's got 3500 attack and your opponent can't stop it from happening. I mean, that's insane. That basically means that if you have this card in your hand, you win the game when your opponent gets 3500 LP. And again, similar to Sky Striker, that's going to happen. There's going to be lots of games where you and your opponent are going to get to low LP because you've just been grinding them out. So this card is insane for this deck. I would never take out. That's why I play it at 3 in the side deck. It's a really strong card for the archetype. It's amazing. So Guys, that is my Magical Musketeer deck profile. I know I've got a little bit of spice, a little bit different as usual, but yeah, if you've been enjoying this deck profile, guys, give it a like. Don't forget to leave a comment on this video. Let me know what you want to see next, and subscribe to the channel. I've got more great content coming for you soon. Peace.